Now at the moment, geometric cake hearts seem so popular, whether you're making them as small individual treats or you're adding them into your treat boxes. Now for this week's video tutorial, I'm going to be making some more cake hearts, but I'm going to be using them to decorate my cake. So we've got some regular size ones and these really cute mini ones. Now you may have seen a previous video where I showed you how to make cake hearts and how to paint on them. In this week's video, I'm going to be using a slightly different mold just to show you some different options. Okay, let's get started. So in order to make my cake, I'm first of all starting with my sponge cake. Now for this, I am using my vanilla sponge cake recipe and I will put a link in the description below. And I've actually baked 1.5 times my recipe. So instead of having my usual 4 layers, this has actually given me 6 layers that are 1 inch in height each. Now you can make your cake any height you like. The reason that I've made mine slightly taller is just so that I can add a few more hearts all the way up the side. Now I've also made a batch and a half of my vanilla buttercream and I'm going to use this to fill and cover my cake, starting by adding a layer of buttercream between my cake slices, and I'm going to pop a crumb coat on the outside. Now all a crumb coat is a thin layer that just locks in any of those loose crumbs before we add final coating of buttercream. Now I will put a link to a video in the description below and on the screen which shows you how to fill and cover your cakes in buttercream in a lot more detail. Now once my crumb coat has been added, I'm going to pop my cake in the fridge until that buttercream has firmed up. This will enable me to put a nice smooth layer of buttercream all over the outside of my cake. Okay, so once the cake has come out of the fridge and that crumb coat has firmed up, I'm going to add another coating of buttercream. Now I actually decided to colour my buttercream in this really pretty teal colour, and for this I've used the Colour Splash Jade Food Gel. So I'm going to smooth that down onto my cake, giving me a nice base to add those geometric hearts onto. Once I'm happy with the outside, I'm then going to go in on the top with my offset spatula, just bringing it from the outside edge into the center. I'm then going to pop this in the fridge for that buttercream to firm up so that we can add on all of our decorations. So I'm going to be adding some geometric hearts onto my cake, and for those I'm going to be using these molds. Now these ones are by Fest Cake London, and you may have already seen a similar mold in my Christmas hot chocolate bombs. Now you can also use silicone molds. Now these larger ones have 4 separate hearts and it's actually a 3-part system. So if we take the back off, you have the main mold, which is quite a rigid plastic that we can pour in our candy melts. You then have these softer plastic hearts which go inside, and then a back which you just push in, which makes it so easy to create the shells to add your cake mixture into. Now I'm also going to be using this smaller simple bonbon chocolate mold. Now this is the cutest thing. So these are geometric hearts, so they're exactly the same, they're just really tiny. So to give you an idea of size, the cake heart that you'll get from these ones is around 6 centimeters in height, and these are 3 centimeters. Now Fest Cake London has kindly given me 10% off to give to all of you across their BWB molds. So all you have to do is click the link that I will put in the description below, and this will mean when you go over to their website, any of these molds that you add to your basket, it will automatically take 10% off at the checkout. Now for my molds, I'm going to be using candy melts for these, and I've got some bright white candy melts which are going to be great for colouring in some different pink shades. Now you can also use chocolate. If you are using chocolate, then make sure you temper your chocolate before adding it into your molds. I'm going to melt these down in the microwave in intervals of around 10 to 15 seconds, making sure that I stir them throughout the different intervals. Now in order to not overheat them, once a lot of that mixture has melted and we just have a few of the candy melts remaining, I'm going to take it out and just mix that by hand until all of those candy melt buttons have completely dissolved throughout the whole mixture. Now to colour my candy melts, I'm going to be using the Colour Mill colours. So I've got a rose and a raspberry. Now for colouring chocolate or candy melts, you want to use an oil-based food gel. Most other food gels are water-based, and if you add water into chocolate or candy melts, you might find that your chocolate seizes and goes quite crumbly, so you can't use it in the molds. Now I want to create 3 different shades of pink. Starting with the larger of my molds, I'm going to start by taking that apart. Now on the mold, I don't know if you can see, but there's actually a line that runs around the bottom of the heart, and this indicates how much of the candy melts we need to add. So first of all, just taking the lighter pink, I'm going to fill that up until we get to that line. I'm then going to take the softer single plastic heart and push this into the back. This is going to create a cake heart shell that has the same width of candy melts all the way over the entire shape. Now you can use silicone molds, and I do have another video tutorial where I show you how to paint different patterns onto your cake hearts, and I will put this in the description below. I'm going to take the back and just push that down. I can then flip that over, and you just want to check that those candy melts are coming right to the top. If they're not, just work that around with your fingers. Now don't worry if you have overfilled them slightly, this will just break off at the end and we'll be left with a perfect heart. Now I'm going to turn this over and just pop this into the fridge until those candy melts have set. Now for the larger of my hearts, I'm going to be adding cake into these, and they're going to be going on the top and at the bottom of the cake. Now for the smaller ones, these are going to be going up the sides, so I need them to be as light as possible so they don't fall off the cake. So I'm going to start with the lighter of the pink, and I'm just going to fill some of those molds. Now you want to work quite quickly, so I'm going to take a piece of parchment paper and just flip those over and let the excess candy melt just fall out. So what it's going to leave us is with a nice shell. I can then use an offset spatula, just wipe that across the top, just taking off any excess. Now for these ones, some of them are going to be just the half shells that we're going to stick directly onto the cake, and some of them I'm going to be putting together so it makes a 3D heart. I'm going to work on some of the slightly darker ones. I'm then going to pop my mold in the fridge until all of those candy melts hearts have set. Now for the larger of the hearts, I'm going to mix up some of the leftover cake which I cut off when I leveled my cakes. Now it is entirely up to you. You could fill these with cake, or you could just leave these as shells. And I'm mixing this with a small amount of buttercream. I want to add buttercream until that cake mixture starts to cling together. Now if you're using a silicone mold, you can put the cake mixture straight into the cake hearts. I just need to separate these ones, so I'm going to take that back off and then just release my cake hearts. So just lightly pushing on that mold. I can then take the softer part and just pull this away, taking off any of that excess candy melt around the edge. That's left us with this chocolate shell, and as you can see, it has a really nice lip on the back. So if you were putting 2 together, for instance, this makes it really easy. Now I'm going to pop this one back in my mold just as a holder while I fill it with cake. Now there isn't much difference between making them in a mold like this or in a silicone mold, but I absolutely love just how neat the finish is, and you also get that geometric shape on the inside. So I'm just taking some of my cake mixture and I'm going to push it into that heart. Now you don't want to overfill them, you want to leave a small gap at the top to fill with some more of those candy melts. And each of the cake hearts takes around 28 grams of cake mixture. I'm then going to take around 1.5 teaspoons of candy melts in the same colour. Use my spoon, just pushing those over the back, closing up that cake heart. Now, because the mold is rigid plastic and it's not going to change shape when I tap it on my work surface, I'm just going to tap that a few times just to level out those candy melts on the back. I'm then going to pop this in the fridge just for that candy melt on the back to harden so that we can take them out and use them on our cake. When those backs have completely set, I'm just going to turn that over to allow those to drop out. Now I've taken the smaller one out the fridge and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So just lightly push down on that mold until that heart releases. Take a knife and just carefully run that around the edge, getting rid of any of that excess. I've got my metal scraper and I'm just going to pop this onto a plate. I'm then going to be using my kitchen blowtorch just to lightly heat the surface of my scraper. I can then take one of my hearts, just place that on the top, and this is just going to melt that outer edge, and then pop those together. And there we have this pretty mini 3D heart. So we've got our larger cake hearts, our cake shells, and our mini 3D shells all ready to add onto our cake. Once my cake has come out of the fridge, I'm going to transfer it onto a cake stand. Now you can also put it onto a cake board, and if you are using a cake board, I would use one that is 9 inches in diameter. So before I add all the decorations onto my cake, the first thing I need to do is prepare my cake hearts. Now these are quite heavy with the cake inside, and we want these to stand up on the top of the cake. So in order for me to attach these to my cake, I'm going to add them onto a stick. Now for this, I've just got some bamboo skewers, so I'm just going to carefully turn that over, and I've melted down just a tiny amount of the leftover candy melts that I had, and I'm going to dip the end of that stick in those candy melts. Stick this onto the back. Now you could put something underneath that and just rest it, but a great product if you want chocolate or candy melts to set quite quickly is to use an ice spray. I'm going to do exactly the same to the other two, but instead of having the stick come in straight down from the bottom, I'm going to do it at a slight angle. So I'm going to start by adding in my cake hearts onto the top of my cake and have them to one side. Now on this side, I'm going to take one of the small 3D hearts. I want to have my small hearts coming down the side and a slightly bigger one at the bottom. Apply a small amount of buttercream onto the back. So just working out the best place to put them. So I've got the 3D ones, and then I've got the ones that I can push directly into the cake. Now to finish it off, I've actually taken some of the heart sprinkles out of the Royal Glitter Mix by Happy Sprinkles, or you could also cut these out of fondant just using a heart plunger cutter. So here we have the finished cake with these really pretty pink geometric hearts running from the bottom all the way up to the top. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will be able to use it to make your own cake hearts, whether you're using them just as small treats or you're adding them onto your cake like I have. If you have enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget you can subscribe to the Cake Spanner's YouTube channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time I upload a new video. Now I will be putting links in the description below to all the tools that I've used throughout today's video, plus where you can get the molds and the 10% off discount code from Fest Cake London. So until next time, bye!